out there, everybody. I'm Madison Parker coming to you again. I wanted to talk a little bit about and show you how, when you shoot a slingshot like I do, and I'm sure that a lot of you just really don't care about slingshots, but hey, for the sake of knowledge and information, who knows, you might need the lead. Of course, I use for the slingshot. It's projectiles. I usually cast a 45 or a 50 caliber, but I use a black powder round, so it's much bigger than a regular 50 caliber. It's 280 grain going on up to 300 grain is what I shoot with my slingshot, which is a very, very heavy round. I've got lead. That is lead, and it's already been melted down and cast into a flat pan. And what I'll do is I'll re-cook this lead, I'll remelt it, and I'll melt it down, and then I will put it into one of these right here. Now this is a smelter for lead, and there is, you can see it, that's the tool that I cast the lead into. But there's a lot of other ways that I can get into it later, but this is one of the casting tools that I use, and this is a 50 caliber black powder sabot. It's not a round ball, but this is a conical sabot. It's shaped like a football with a flat nose. Okay, so that's the way it looks. Anyway, and this is the machine that I use. Once I get the lead melted, I put it in this, and then I get it up on my table. I'm going to go through the whole thing today. I'm going to start right now by getting this lead melted down, and I want to get it cooking. Okay, you can see I use a little piece of fat lighter, and I light it, and then I get this. This is just a fish cooker right here. It's one I made myself, actually. You can buy them very similar to this, at your low-end, discount stores like Walmart and stuff. But they're great, and it's run by a propane bottle. Of course, this is a cast iron, cooker, and I don't use this for anything but cooking lead in. So I cook lead in it, I don't use it for anything else, but just strictly lead anyway. I got the fire on, I've got the lead in the pot, and I'm going to let it heat up, and when it gets melted, I'm going to show you how I pour it into these, and then I'll show you how I transfer that and move to the next level. Anyways, for those of you that don't know anything about how to deal with lead, this is a good learning experience. And let me say this about lead. There's a lot of controversy out there about lead. Lead can be dangerous for women that are pregnant and for young children. But in order for the levels of the gas that is produced from the lead, it has to be above a temperature that is higher than what this or even this will bring it. In other words, this container, this tool right here, will not bring lead to the heating point, to the highest level, to where it starts producing gas that is toxic or that can be carcinogen. I think it could be a carcinogen if you bring the heat of it to a higher level. But just by virtue of the fact that you can buy these online this is a Lee professional level bullet mold, it won't heat lead up so hot that it would produce a level of toxicity. Okay, so that's the best way I can put it. So these are low voltage, very low heat level elements, so they get the lead to the melting point, but that's it. They don't get it much past that. In fact, I've had it to where I actually accidentally poured a little bit on my finger, and it burned pretty good, but it wasn't much worse than, like, say, if I took my finger and put a match out with it, or squeezed off a candle or something like that. It burned, but it was surprising. It didn't even raise a blister on me. But it's not to say you go out there and do that, but it's not that bad. When the lead falls through the air, it cools down pretty quick, and by the time it hits you, if it does hit you, it's usually cooled down enough to where it stings pretty bad. It burns, but it's not, you know, the kind of third-degree burn like dangerous or something like that. And usually it's usually just a little, like the size of a raindrop, you know, just a drop. And you know it splatters, and you got to be careful with it. You got to be you got to be very mindful when you work with lead, and you don't want to splash it around when it gets liquefied. Um, you got to know how to do it, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today. But anyway, we'll get to that after this cooks down. I'll come back and I'll open this up and I'll show you how we do it. And it's kind of interesting. It'll be a good learning experience for those of you that, even if you're casting sinkers for yourself or you know, catfishing and things like that, it's a lot cheaper to do it yourself than it is to go buy them at, you know, some of these hardware stores. And lead is getting more and more expensive. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. I'll be back when this cooks down. I'm gonna come back and show you some more. Okay, take care. Hey out there, I'm back. I wanted to show you. You know, I showed you a few minutes ago the cast. It was a 45 caliber black powder bullet mold, and you can buy those online from a company called Lee Pro Caster, Lee Casting. They've been in the business of, you know, providing lead melting and making your own bullets, making your own rounds, refitting, you know, brass casings into the lead and rebuilding your ammo, that is, which I don't do, but I just use the bullet part and I use their cast. But this is a simple sweet gum limb, and it's green. This is a green limb. I just chopped it down with my Village Parang. This is not a Village Parang. This is the new model of Village Parang. I'm not even sure what the new model is called, but anyway, it's a pretty good piece of work. But I'm going to show you how I use this to make my own cast to pour my lead into. If I didn't have the money to buy a bullet mold, I would make it out of this, and I'm just going to show you real quickly how that's done. And it's not a really hard process, but it's simple and it works. So you see what I'm doing on this side. I'm just pulling it flat. I'm pulling, pull the wood off. Making it flat. Okay, now I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to go to the opposite side, and I'm going to do the same thing, not quite as deep. Just so it'll ride smooth in my. So now you see I have a piece of wood. It's a green piece of sweet gum, flat on both sides, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill holes in this, and I'll show you how to make your own cast for lead melting. Okay, I'm back. Here, I've got my drill press set up with a 9/16 steel bit. Okay, now that's a 9/16 inch hole. It's going to drill with a pretty big size hole, and then of course you've got to set the depth where it will only go to a certain point. In other words, you could get it too deep, and then your lead slug will be too long. So you don't want it too long, too short. You want each slug, hopefully, to be within a few grains of each other. Now, they're not going to be perfect because you're making it. You can see where I already made a drill hole right here. I did a pilot hole just to see how it would work, and it looks like it's going to work fine. What I'll do is run a layer of these. And then later on, whenever I get the lead melted, I'll show you how you pour it into here and make your own lead bullets. And it could be lead sinkers too. But this is just a piece of wood, cut from the trees, and you make it yourself. So here I go. I'm going to go ahead and run a couple of lines, drill some holes, and then come back later and pour some lead in. I'll show you how it works. It's pretty cool. Very good. A good way to save money. I'll tell you that. A good way to miser the amount of money you spend on doing things that you like to do. You know, see that lever won't let me go any deeper than that right there. That's as deep as I can go. So every round I got here, they're all going to be pretty close to the same depth. Now they might be a little off because of the way I cut this wood. Because the wood's not exactly the same on both sides. It might be thicker here than it is here. I did it with draw knife, but it's simple. It's to the point, and it gets the job done. And quite frankly, it works really good. I've used it on many occasions when I didn't have my other caster rolling, you know. But anyway, so that's 1, 2, 3, 6. That's 7 cast. 7 cast bullet mold. And what I'll do is I'll take this and cut it off here, and cut it off here so it'll be short and I can manipulate it real easy. And then whenever I get the lead melted, I'll come back and then we'll put it into the actual, you know, mold. Anyway, that's that, and I'll be back in a moment. Thanks for watching.